Good morning, good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. Welcome to this thing that I do called Thor's Entertainment. I am Thor, and today I'm continuing my playthrough of Crash Bandicoot. Now, in the previous two episodes, we have managed to go through 18 levels of the remastered Crash Bandicoot that is part of the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. And the very last level that we completed previously was the boss battle against Koala Kong. And following that boss battle, we find ourselves traveling to the very next level to kick off this episode, and that next level is going to be Heavy Machinery. And in addition to going to the very next level, we will also be going to the very next island, which I believe is going to be the very last island. So every single level that we complete from here to the very end of the game should all take place on this island, and it is also at this point, I would say, is when the game starts to get a bit more difficult. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened there, I did not mean to get that stopwatch, and I realized that after I'd already, picked it up. So, since I actually want to get the gem on this level and not go for the time trial, I figured I wouldn't waste any more time and just immediately run off the ledge to my death and restart the level. That's what that little awkward looking interaction was. Anyway, I was talking about difficulty enhancing in this area. Now, there were definitely difficult levels prior to now, but they were fairly well spaced out, and overall, I would say most of the levels up to this point really were not that bad. And I would say overall the levels here on this third island are definitely more consistently difficult than the levels that we were facing prior to now. And that may also be just a bias based on my own personal experiences, but I think there is some truth to it. Like, I remember when I first got to this island, it was on this exact heavy machinery level when I just found myself dying non-stop. Like, I really was not ready for the difficulty curve at the time. So I was playing kind of reckless as a result of being unprepared, and it resulted in a lot of deaths. Also, for some reason, I kept thinking that the frozen pipes were going to kill me, but in fact they can be used as platforms, so yeah, just a lack of familiarity all around. So yeah, just not knowing the hazards, not knowing the level, and being a bit reckless as I was playing through the level, it definitely presented the biggest learning curve in Crash Bandicoot for me at the time. And perhaps that experience has just stuck with me, and I think that this is the point when the game starts to get harder. But I also don't really think it's entirely in my head. After all, the levels around this island are much, much longer than the previous ones. Like, even here in Heavy Machinery, I'm pretty sure it's a 3-floor level. You start off on the top, then you go to a middle level, and then you go all the way down to the bottom level. And I think that's the last level until you reach the very end, which I think you have to do a jumping portion at the end of the level as well, so you're kind of reaching another floor there too, but I'll just call it 3 levels. So yeah, it's kind of a lengthy one. And I'll wait to talk about it whenever we get to the next few levels, but there are also some gimmicks in them that make them kind of lengthy as well, depending on how you're approaching it. And I have to admit, because this level is as long as it is, I'm kind of creeping through it at the incredible speed of watching paint dry, because there's a lot of things that can kill you on this level, so I'm not really in a huge hurry. Not to worry though, whenever I go for the relic for this level, it's a completely different story. Whenever that's happening, I fly through everything. And I'm trying to think to myself whether or not this video was recorded over a year ago, or if this is one of the videos I had to re-record recently because it was missing from all the other collections of recordings from when I got the gems and the relics. Now, seeing myself go as slowly as I am through this level makes me think that it was probably a recent recording, because whenever I finally came back to the game to finish up all the videos I needed for this larger video, I was not nearly as familiar with the levels as I used to be, so me being cautious would make sense. But at the same time, I don't really remember myself playing through this specific level again, so maybe, just maybe, this was also one of the old recordings and it's just one of my more hesitant and cautious approaches to a level. I don't know, it's kind of hard to say. Although it is kind of funny seeing myself die even when I'm taking this as slowly and cautiously as I am. Like, I'm just creeping through this and somehow still, just inching forward through the level at a snail's pace, I still managed to find myself dying. So, yeah. Even all that extra effort didn't necessarily mean I had a higher probability of surviving the entire level, so oh well. Hopefully that's the last time I die, but maybe not. We will see. At least we are getting a break from the real potential of dying in this bonus level. Since even if you end up dying in this level, you just start over again, it really doesn't count against you in any way. But even though there are no real stakes in the bonus level, I'd still like to complete it in one try and just kind of save myself the time. We already had to backtrack once due to a death. It'd be nice not to repeat this bonus level more than once. Which this one isn't too bad. All you gotta do is just bounce on the boxes and break them in sequential order as you progress to the end of the bonus level. So as long as you time your jumps just right and make sure that you're not bouncing on a box any more than absolutely necessary and progressing to the next one, you should be fine. And with that bonus level out of the way, that means that now becomes a checkpoint, so even though we do not want to die anymore, mostly because we just want to save some time and not have to backtrack anymore, even if it has to happen, say I do die, at least I don't have to go back as far anymore. And we can now continue to press on. We're going to be heading down to the bottommost level, or at least I think the bottommost level of this level. It's a lot of times saying level. Bottommost floor of this level. That sounds better. And then once we were all the way down here, we pretty much immediately found another checkpoint box. So that previous bonus level becoming a checkpoint kind of doesn't have any real purpose anymore because we just had to walk like 5 feet and then there's another checkpoint. Which now makes me think that bonus level becoming a checkpoint and then it becoming immediately replaced by the very next one because it was placed so close to its competition. We have just sent it into a crisis. Like, it no longer knows what its purpose in life is anymore. Like, why was it ever set up to be a checkpoint if we were just going to be immediately moving on to some other checkpoint, the newest checkpoint? And it is during this existential crisis for that bonus level checkpoint that it then begins to go down some dark, dark paths. It may never truly recover, all because Crash Bandicoot just completely left it behind for some other checkpoint like 5 feet away. If only the game designers had realized how big of an issue this was. How this was going to cause the previous checkpoint just fall down a spiral of jealousy. And then some self-hatred on top of that. No, the humanity for the checkpoints. It even had to watch Crash die twice and then use that checkpoint 2 separate occasions when it didn't even get used once. It's truly, truly going to go into a furious rage over this occurrence. As you can tell, I'm kind of running out of things to talk about on this level. Let's just continue briskly on. Now, like I said previously, my intention was to not die any more than I already have, mostly because I just wanted to limit the amount of backtracking that would take place, and by proxy, it would also limit the amount of time it was going to take me to complete this level, considering that I'm only getting through this level right now in order to get the gem. And I still have to play through this level one more time, all the way from start to finish, in order to try and get the relic during a time trial. So, keep in mind that I had to play through this level another time. Really didn't want to spend too much time on it, just my first playthrough of it. Or what's going to be the first playthrough of it for this video anyway. As you can tell by the stopwatch being at the very beginning of this level, obviously I've already played through this once before. And I guess to revisit a previous topic, whenever I said I wasn't going to show the initial playthrough of a level if I did not get the gem for it during the initial playthrough, this is kind of why. Some of these long levels can be really tedious if I found myself in a situation where I was having to play through it 3 separate times. Like 2 was already a lot and kind of pushing it, but 3 was just way too much. We're talking about spending like 20 minutes on just one level. And at the moment we are on the Dr. Brio bonus level where this one's not too complicated. You start off with 1 row of boxes at the very bottom of the screen. You bounce your way, breaking those boxes all the way from left to right, and once you get all the way to the right, there's going to be a middle box with an exclamation point. You bounce on that, and then once you do that, what was previously just a bunch of outlines of boxes in the middle row then turn into real boxes. You jump up to those and bounce your way all the way from right to left this time, and then you end up doing the exact same thing, reaching another metal checkpoint box, which then turns the outline of boxes at the very top of the screen into real boxes. You bounce all the way across from those from left to right, all the way to the very end of the bonus level, and then you are done. Not a very complicated one, but if you don't time your jumps right, or the distance right, I mean, you can fall and die and have to start all this over again, which fortunately we don't, because it really sucked to get to that 3rd row and be almost done, screw it up, die, and have to start all that over again. That definitely didn't happen. I didn't just remove it entirely from this video so no one had to watch it. That would just be super unfortunate. And alright, we are doing the final climb of this entire level. We just have to get through this little bouncing part, make sure we get all the boxes on the way up as we jump on these little trampolines. And then finally, the very first iteration of us going through heavy machinery will be over. We'll collect the gem. And then I'll go ahead and initiate the second playthrough of this level in order to get the relic, which will go by much, much faster because I'm not really going to be worried about showing you any of the failures whenever it came to getting that relic. I am mostly going to be focused on showing the success, which means we should have a playthrough from start to finish. Me just speeding through the level, not dying once, and then also not really hesitating for anything like I did the first time because we have to get that done within a specific time frame. So even though this is a long level and took a while to get through it the first time, getting through it the second time should be much, much faster. Now, ideally, we'll get this entire thing finished up in under 1 minute and 50 seconds, which you should be able to reasonably do if you get through the entire level without dying and you hit all of the little time-stopping boxes. Besides that, though, I guess a little bit of advice I can give on this level is that one of the slowest parts of it that will slow you down will be the platforms that carry you down to the next levels. I believe there are 2 of them, one to take you to the middle level and one to take you to the bottommost level. Now, the slow part about those is just riding those all the way down to the next level, when in all actuality, you do not need to ride those platforms because they're just going straight down. And since they're going straight down, you could just run off the platform and let Crash fall all the way down, and then he'll hit the bottom or the middle level faster than the platform is going to be going downward. It wouldn't seem like that would save you a bunch of time, but it does cut things down, so if you're cutting it a little bit close whenever you're trying to go for gold or platinum, that should help you out a decent amount on this level. And also on this level, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that can kill Crash, but one of the least intimidating ones are those little walking robots that are just barely scurrying around the platform. Like, they kind of look like an off-brand Doctor Who villain, and it can just barely move around, so you wouldn't think it'd be too much of an issue, and in all actuality, it really isn't. However, this did take me multiple attempts to accomplish both getting the gem and getting the talisman, or the relic, excuse me. But somehow, occasionally, I'd still find myself running right into them and dying because I just waited too long to jump, and that's one of the most embarrassing deaths I can have on this level because it's the least intimidating enemy on this level. Like, by far, it is the one thing I think is the least likely to kill you, and sure enough, I have a few deaths due to them. It's kind of funny how things work out sometimes, and kind of embarrassing on my part. And alright, we managed to make it to the end of the level, and even though I missed a few of the time-stopping boxes, I still did just enough with a 1 minute 49 second time to get a gold relic. That's good enough for me to get the achievement, so we're going to go ahead and press on to the next level. Enough time spent on this one. And the next level that we are going to be tackling is the Cortex power level. Now, this one is kind of sort of unique because it's one of the few levels that requires you to backtrack into different areas. Instead of it being a side-scrolling level like some of the others, this one is definitely from the perspective of a third person. You're having to go forward and backwards. And unlike a lot of the other levels, there are multiple paths that you can take and multiple paths that you have to take in order to get all the boxes for this level, so getting the gem can be a bit of a challenge. And in fact, getting the gem requires you to have another colorful gem under your belt in order to do it, so we'll be coming back to this level later. And right now we're just going to be focusing on getting through the level as quickly as possible and trying to get yet another gold or platinum relic. Which I'd say getting the relic for this level is a lot easier than getting the gem. At least this way you can go through the fastest possible route without any sort of backtracking, and that makes things a little bit easier. I would say the thing that's going to cause you the most trouble is just backtracking through this level whenever it comes to the gem. If you just follow one path the entire time, it's really not that bad, and you should be done with minimal effort and probably under about 40 seconds. And here we are at the end of the level, and yeah, under 40 seconds. I got done in 38 seconds, or about 38 seconds after you factor in all the time-stopping boxes, and that was enough for another platinum relic. So it's one of the better times that you can get for this thing, and I'm pretty happy about that. So yeah, so long Cortex Power. I will see you later whenever it comes time for the gem, but right now we are pressing on to the next level. Speaking of which, we are at the next level now, and that's going to be the Generator Room. And Generator Room happens to be one of the levels that is containing a colorful gem, which then provides us with the unique challenge of trying to get through the entire level without dying, but while also getting every single box in that level. So yeah, you may see me take my time just a little bit whenever it comes to this level, just to make sure I get every single box in this level, while also remaining alive the entire time. And as previously mentioned, bonus levels do not count as deaths. You can die in those as much as you would like, and yeah, this one has a bonus level that we're going to have to knock out as well, so you'll probably see me maybe screw that one up. I can't remember if I got that in the first try on this level or not. But we shall see. Yeah, the Lost City was the very first level where I got a colorful gem the very first time that I played through Crash Bandicoot. But I do believe here at the Generator Room, this is the second level where I got a colorful gem. So there's a pretty wide gap between when I got my first and my second. And yeah, this one took me plenty of attempts, mostly due to the jumping portions of this level, getting on certain platforms that move and timing your jumps just right to get between platforms that are both moving and stationary. Now granted, the enemies can cause you some problems too, but the dropping platforms, the moving platforms, the stationary platforms, all the jumps involved in that is definitely what tripped me up the most. And even though I said the enemies in this level are not that bad when compared to the jumping portions of this level, they have still been giving me a little bit of trouble so far in this playthrough of the level. Man, I said level a lot. Anyway, yeah, the enemies caused me some trouble. And thankfully I had a level 2 mask, and that managed to save me both times I got hit by the enemies. And I don't think I've really talked about this before in the playthrough, but whenever you are struggling in a level and dying very frequently, the game begins to compensate and help you out a little bit. It basically feels bad for you and starts making things easier. Now, the way it did that for me here in this level, because again, I died quite a bit trying to get this colorful gem, it gives you a mask from the start. So if you've died a bunch of times, you no longer just enter as Crash, it gives you a mask as well. And if you are really struggling and really sucking at a level, which, trust me, I was here, it'll give you that level 2 mask with the orange and yellow feathers. That way you can take 2 hits before actually anything fatal can happen to you. Short of, falling to your death. A mask will not help you there. So yeah, that's how I ended up starting off with a level 2 orange and yellow mask at the very beginning of the level, because I was dying just all the time on this level trying to get this colorful gem. Now, I don't think it happened in this level. I could be wrong though, but another way the game can compensate and help you out is it can turn boxes that are just standard normal crates into checkpoints. That way you're not trying to go as far between one checkpoint and another, and it makes it a little bit easier for you if you're frequently dying, since you no longer have to backtrack all the way back to that previous checkpoint. You can kind of have a middle point that otherwise would not be there. I'm not sure if there are other ways the game Crash Bandicoot takes sympathy on a player that is dying a bunch, but those are the 2 cases that come to mind for me that I am immediately aware of: the masks and the additional checkpoints that would not normally be there. So yeah, if you ever watch me playing through this game and there's a checkpoint that you did not see when you were playing through the game, that probably means I was dying a lot more than you were. Oh, and whenever it comes to these colorful gems, if you do die on this level, don't continue trying to play through it. Because even if you die and you start over at the very beginning of the level, it still counts it as a death. And if you get all the way through the level and get all the boxes from that point, you're still not going to get the gem because you technically died. So what you have to do whenever you die on a level like this is you have to quit, return to the overworld, and then re-enter the level again. Which can be pretty tedious, especially whenever it's a challenging level, but unfortunately that is what you have to do for the game to count you as not dying when going through a level. And yeah, I was definitely trying to time that spin and activation of the TNT for when the platform was starting to move away so I would not get blown up, but I did not do that very well, and yeah, we are back down to a level 1 mask. As you can tell, all the deaths that resulted in me getting those masks, well, it really benefited me in the long run. I definitely needed all the flexibility I could with taking hits on this level for me to finally complete it without dying. And that is a very good example of one of the cases where I definitely needed it. To include all the other times on this level when I ran into various enemies. So yeah, despite this being my successful run at getting the colorful gem, I definitely screwed up a bunch, and I would not have been successful had I not had all the extra benefits I could possibly get on this level. So in a way, in some cases, it might be beneficial to just go ahead and die as many times as necessary to get a mask or a level 2 mask. That way you have the flexibility you're going to need to actually finish the level without dying. I think in some cases, like the slippery slope, I did end up, deliberately dying a bunch of times just so I could reasonably do this. But in any case, the generator room level is at its end and we got the colorful gem. It is time to press on to the next level, which I believe ironically also has a colorful gem available, so yeah. No, wait, nope. I forgot, we're not pressing on to the next level just yet. We still have to get the relic for this level. So yeah, you saw how long it took me to get through the level from start to finish while not dying and then also getting all of the crates. Now it is time to completely throw that out of your mind and see me just fly through this level very quickly in comparison. Which so far we are flying through the level at the pace that we're going to need in order to get that relic. We're just going to go ahead and ignore the fact that I died very early on in my very first attempt to get this relic. Like I died maybe 3 seconds into the level and then had to start over again. Yeah, just ignore that and we're doing great. We'll just pretend like that never even happened, and oh man, look at the time we are getting so far. So far, so good. I have not done this, but I'm kind of curious to see what the biggest discrepancy in time is between whenever I'm going for a gem versus when I am going for a relic. Because going for a relic is, a very fast process. You're just running from start to finish as fast as you can, getting those time-stopping boxes, but that's basically the only distraction you're going to have, and your times are always going to be super low as a necessity. Now, whenever you're going for the gems, especially the colorful gems, due to the fact that you're trying to not die along the way, you're adding several minutes to your completion time for those. So I'm kind of curious which level has the biggest discrepancy in time from how fast it was for you to complete it getting the relic versus how long it took you to get the gem. Because I'm thinking like maybe something like the slippery slope. I keep referencing it, but man, that's my best example. I'm imagining something like that has at least 5 extra minutes on it for getting the gem versus whenever you're getting the relic. I don't know if I'll do this, but I will consider it. But I may go back at some point and check out those times and see which level was the biggest difference, which one was the most challenging from a time completion standpoint between getting the relic and getting the gem. That could end up being a fun topic to discuss whenever we finish up the game and we let the credits roll in the background, so yeah. I think I may do that. Stay tuned to find out. But anyway, now we finally did progress on to the next level, that next level being Toxic Waste. And as advertised on this level, there is a colorful gem. It looks like it is going to be the blue one. So we need to get through this entire level again without dying, but also getting every single box along the way. Which this is not a very crazy long level, but there are a bunch of obstacles, and it took me a little bit of time to get used to them. Like literally the timing was something to get used to, jumping over certain barrels. There's also going to be bouncing barrels that you have to run under instead of jump over. But I'd say this one really isn't that bad. I would put it on the lower end of difficulty when it comes to levels that require you to finish them without dying. And I know you can really just breeze through this level in order to get the relic whenever you have the timing for everything down, which we'll get to see that here momentarily. But yeah, as far as obstacles are concerned, the rolling barrels really are not bad at all. They're pretty simple, just jump over them. The worst thing that you can do is maybe accidentally run into them. Like say you're running forward and you don't time your jump right, maybe you wait too long to jump and you just run straight into the barrel. Like yeah, that can definitely happen, and I think that did happen to me occasionally. But generally speaking, I would say they're really easy to avoid. I would say for me, whenever I was trying to get this level done without dying, the biggest obstacle was just the bouncing barrels, because the timing on those is a little bit awkward. Like you just saw it, I ran right into the bouncing barrel because I didn't have the timing right, and thankfully I had a mask or I'd be restarting this level again. Since you can only really run under them whenever they're in the air after having been bounced, trying to understand where exactly the barrel is going to stop, you know, where it's going to hit the ground again, that part took a little bit of getting used to, and if I'm being completely honest, it really required a lot of luck on my part, more so than getting the timing down. Like, I believe I had to play through this level again in order to get one other level recorded, and yeah, I definitely either don't remember the timing for those barrels, or it kind of confirmed the fact that I just kind of got lucky running under them the way that I did. So yeah, overall the obstacles in this level not bad, except for those bouncing barrels of doom. Those things kind of have it out for me. Now this bonus level basically has you focus on trying to get to the very end of it before the TNT explodes and then destroys all the boxes and prevents you from getting to the very end of this bonus level, or you die from the explosion. Now I could have lingered around a little bit more, try to get some more of those crates and get some more fruit, but I was not going to waste any time or take any chances with that. After all, the TNT just blows up all the boxes for you anyway, so that counts as them being destroyed, and that's good enough for me. So rather than wasting any time collecting anything that I didn't actually need besides the boxes, I just went ahead and pressed on. Those exploded, got the 2 extra lives at the very end, and away we go to the rest of the level. Or, well, away we went, because we did manage to complete the level without dying, and while also getting all the boxes, which meant we got the blue gem. Now, all things considered, this is a fairly short level, just with lots of obstacles along the way, so this time trial should not be too bad, considering we've now familiarized ourselves with the obstacles. And since we're not trying to get every single box along the way, and we're not too worried about the dying part, the final time that we get while trying to get this relic should be pretty quick, which makes this last little portion of this playthrough of this level also fairly fast. And then once we end up finishing this level, excitingly, we have a boss battle waiting for us. We will get to go against Pinstripe, which I believe this is the only time he's ever appeared in a Crash Bandicoot game, so he is a one and done kind of boss. But still, it's a fun boss battle, and it's one of very few that we have left. I think this is only the last of 3 boss battles that we have left, because we have Pinstripe, I believe we have Dr. Brio, and then we have Cortex, and I think that is it. And I'm actually a little bit surprised. I always thought this level was shorter than the Cortex power level, but actually it's a bit longer by about 20 seconds. That kind of caught me off guard, but that's alright. We have finished up the Toxic Waste level with the relic that we needed, so now it's time to press on to the boss battle. And alright, here we have Pinstripe, and as was made obvious by his introductory cutscene there, the big obstacle for him is going to be the fact that he is shooting at you pretty much the entire boss fight. Now, since I just died due to the gunfire from Pinstripe, I guess it's worth mentioning how to go about beating this boss battle, because for the first 3 bars of health, he is periodically going to jump from one location to running to the other location, and between his movements, he is no longer shooting at you. So you want to make use of those times whenever he's moving and not shooting to run up on him, use Crash's spin attack, and that will damage him. So yeah, for the first 3 bars of health, you're just waiting for those moments whenever he is running across the stage. Now after that, the game changes just a little bit in this boss battle. Pinstripe will no longer be vulnerable whenever he is running across the stage. Instead, what you have to do is wait for the gun to jam. So like whenever the gun is experiencing that issue where the barrel is just not feeding around in, or it maybe had a double feed, something like that, I don't know, the gun is jammed. Whenever you see that, it'll be pretty obvious, and at that point, you need to run up on Pinstripe and do the spin attack on him before he is able to clear the jam. So yeah, pretty much the same thing the entire time, just catching him whenever he is vulnerable and not shooting. And alright, we are done, and we are down to the last few stages before the last 2 bosses, and the next level is going to be the High Road. Which, this is going to have the same gimmick as the Road to Nowhere stage that we saw earlier. We're going to be running along this rickety bridge and just trying not to fall to our deaths, and also trying to avoid the obstacles on that bridge. And as you can tell, after I have already died twice in the span of like 10 seconds, I am not doing a great job of the whole not falling to my death part. But to kick things off, the first thing you want to do is go backwards on this stage. Even though it looks like there is nothing there and that you're just going to fall to your death, there are some invisible planks that you can travel and jump to. Although there are gaps in those planks, so it is still very likely that you will fall to your death. So yeah, just get prepared for that as you go ahead and figure out what the actual distance is between those gaps, until you can go all the way backwards to a hidden platform with a few boxes that you are going to need in order to get the gem for this level. And I did put emphasis on the whole making sure you do your jumps just right between all these gaps in the planks and making sure that you avoid the obstacles as you progress forward, so it's probably a good idea for me to mention that you can pretty much avoid all of that entirely if you are good at one little gimmick in this level. And that gimmick is going to be jumping onto the ropes that are holding up these bridges. Because if you do it right, you will land on top of those ropes, and then you can just tightrope walk your way all the way basically to the end of this level while avoiding everything. Now you will eventually see me do that when I accidentally remove a bouncing turtle from the stage that I need in order to, jump onto it like a trampoline and bounce my way over a gap onto some planks that I otherwise could not jump to by myself. Now once I accidentally removed that turtle, I had no choice but to try and jump onto the rope handles for the bridge, and then, like I said, do the whole tightrope walk all the way to the next available spot that I could jump onto. And it is kind of funny watching this back in hindsight, because you can see me being very hesitant and just barely moving on those ropes whenever I try to progress forward, because I was afraid of the idea that I might fall and then waste my life and have to start this whole level over again. I want you to keep that in mind, because whenever it comes time for me to get the relic for this stage, walking on those ropes is going to be essential, and all that caution that you saw a moment ago is going to completely disappear as I am sprinting across this really small gap that I can walk on these ropes all the way to the very end of the stage. Because there's basically no other way that you're going to get the relic for this stage unless you do that. So yeah, get prepared to see the huge jump in progress I make from being cautious about that to just sprinting my way through the whole level. And I have not shown myself die like a considerable amount throughout the playthroughs of these levels in Crash Bandicoot, but on this level it feels like I'm definitely showing more deaths than I typically do on a given level. Like, I started off this level by dying 2 times consecutively in a really short span of time, and then between these checkpoints I've now died an additional 2 times. So as you can tell, I kind of struggle with these Road to Nowhere and High Road related levels. And to try and avoid stranding myself on this little ledge here, I want to wait till the mask runs out of its invincibility so I don't take out that turtle, and I still have something I can use to trampoline my way across the gap. So yeah, we're hanging out a moment. So yeah, I have shown 4 deaths so far on this level. And the funny thing is, I'm completely cutting out all the additional deaths that took place. So yeah, if we've only gotten 4 so far, just imagine how many more happened off screen. Aw, Look how happy he is. That wild boar is just wanting to hang out and enjoy the view. Kind of almost makes you feel bad that Crash Bandicoot was riding his cousins through the finish line of various levels earlier. You just keep hanging out and enjoying the view, buddy. I mentioned earlier that I was kind of playing with the idea of going back and looking at the biggest time discrepancy that took place between how long it took me to get a gem on a level and how long it took me to get the gold or platinum relic for that level. But I have been playing with the idea of doing something else related to the deaths of Crash Bandicoot. And the idea is, and it would take me a long time to do it, but I was thinking I could go back, look at what footage I have, and kind of make a montage of all the times I died as Crash Bandicoot trying to get the gems or the right kind of relics. Now, the footage I have is nowhere near going to cover all of the deaths that took place whenever I was playing this game, because I only recorded up to a certain point prior to when I finally did achieve getting either the gem or the relic. So there are a lot of attempts at certain levels that I just don't have the footage for anymore. So even though there's a colossal amount more deaths than I could possibly show in this video, or whenever this playthrough ends, it would still be kind of cool to kind of get an idea of just how colossal of an amount of lives I went through by montaging what footage I do have, and then getting the final count of how many lives were lost by our friend Crash Bandicoot throughout this playthrough, mostly due to me not being the most amazing platformer in the world. So yeah, my bad, Crash. Maybe we'll get that statistic and you can hold that against me for the rest of your life. Which, I don't know if there's ever going to be another Crash Bandicoot game, so maybe the lifespan of the Crash Bandicoot franchise is already over, but if they happen to make another game, well, you can keep holding it against me. And alright, we are nearly at the very end of the stage. It has been a fun one, and I'm sure it looked like it was a pretty brisk and fast process, but as I alluded to earlier, this one took a lot of patience on my part, so I was very happy to be this close to the finish line. So we just go ahead and collect the gem for this stage, and we go ahead and call it a day and move on to the very next level. Oh wait, I did it again. I keep forgetting. I still have to go back and do the relic run. So okay, now is the point where I get to really show off what the big difference was between that previous iteration of this level and then the fastest version of it that I have. Because here, there is going to be no caution. There's going to be no taking my time. I'm going to be hopping onto these ropes and then sprinting my way all the way to the finish line and avoiding all the turtles and planks that I can. Now, this will result in just countless numbers of deaths along the way by you whenever you try to attempt this, but this is also pretty much the only way that you're going to reach the finish line for this level within the time frame needed to get either a gold or platinum relic. I believe if you actually try going the route of running along the planks and then also trying to avoid the obstacles, use the turtle trampolines, do all that stuff, I am pretty sure you're not going to make it to the end of the level in a time frame that will match the requirement needed for the relic that you want for that trophy. So yeah, get ready to die many, many times while trying to tightrope your way all the way to the very end. I'm sure this run right here looks amazing because I get it right all the way from start to finish, but man, you'd be amazed just how many times Crash Bandicoot would die at the very first jump onto the rope at the beginning of this level. Even in attempts that I almost finished and almost made it all the way to the very end, and then unfortunately would fall off at the very end, you would think after getting that good at the level you wouldn't screw up at the very first jump of the level again. But no. More often than not, that's exactly where I would die. And I was just really happy whenever I nailed that first jump, because then it seemed like the rest of the run would go alright for the most part. Even if I did eventually lose either due to time or falling off the rope, I'd get pretty far before it happened, so it was always like the biggest challenge was just getting the first jump down. And as you saw a moment ago, even after doing all of that and making incredible time doing the most risky play to try reaching the end of the level, my time was still only just good enough for a gold relic. Now imagine to yourself how crazy of a pace you have to be going at and how much you just cannot screw up whatsoever on those ropes in order to get a platinum relic. Fortunately, I'm not trying to make myself get platinum for every single level because there's no reason to do so since there's not a trophy requirement for it, but that just sounds like torture and I would have nightmares about it for all of eternity. Oh, and speaking of nightmares I'll have for all of eternity, we have finally reached the infamous level that I have been alluding to throughout this entire playthrough. We are now currently on the slippery slope level. which in my opinion was the absolute worst experience I have ever had playing a Crash Bandicoot game. Granted, I have not played them all, and I have not tried 100%ing all the Crash Bandicoot games, but I have played a good amount of Crash from 1, 2, 3 Crash Team Racers. I have a lot of good Crash experience. And still, I can very confidently say that this is probably the worst level experience I have ever had. And whenever I say worst level experience, I am combining getting the colorful gem on this level and also getting either a gold or platinum relic for this level. For starters, this is a very long level. On top of that, there are instant death falls all over the level. And on top of that, there are a bunch of jump puzzles that you have to accomplish where platforms are moving in and out of the walls, and if you don't time it right, they'll withdraw and you'll fall to your death. Also, there are staircases that will recoil on you whenever you try to walk onto them, which will cause you to slide and fall to your death. Oh, and also, there are birds that you have to jump on in order to make certain jumps to higher points. And if you do it wrong, you will fall to your death. If you time the jump wrong as well, you can jump into the bird and also die, but not fall to your death. So at least we're getting a little bit of variety now. Oh, and there are scientists that are throwing potions at you that you have to time just right as you try to advance forward. And if you don't do the jump onto the platform where the scientists are just right, you could end up finding yourself jumping into the line of fire for their evil potions. So yeah, have fun with that. And there is just so much in this level that can kill you. It is truly, truly frustrating. And the worst part is just trying to get the timing down on everything that recoils on you, whether it be these platforms in the side of the walls or the staircases that you have to climb to the next level. Like, that is probably the worst part, because even if it does not cause you to fall into a deceased status, it is still setting you back by returning you to an earlier point in the level, and it's going to take you a really long time to advance past that point. Now, that's more frustrating specifically whenever it comes to trying to get either the gold or the platinum relic for this level, because that essentially means that it's an instant reset, because there's no way you're going to recover in time to finally finish the stage within a time frame necessary for that relic. When going for the colorful gem, it's not necessarily the end, like you don't have to reset immediately, but in all likelihood, if you do end up falling at any point in this level, there's a really good chance you're not going to survive it. And even if you do survive it, trying to climb back up all the way and avoiding all the hazards that were there before will also likely end up killing you. There is just nothing fun about this level. And I distinctly remember when I finally did get the red gem at the very end of this level, and I did finally eventually get either the gold or the platinum relic for this level, I was not happy. Like, normally whenever you accomplish something like that, there is a hint of joy. You are enthusiastic with yourself because you accomplished something. In this case, there's only slight relief that this was finally over. Beyond that, even though it was finally over, all I could feel was just frustration at how many attempts and how many deaths occurred trying to just get the things I needed to advance beyond this point. Like, I can't stress enough, this was the worst. Now, the fortress, that one's pretty bad too. And there are some other levels that kind of rival this one, but I specifically will just use the term rival. I do think the slippery slope is by far the worst level. And when I say that, I do only mean when trying to get the gem and the relic. Like, there is an enjoyable aspect to this level if you're not challenging yourself this much. Granted, it wasn't the most fun experience because it's still challenging even if you're not worried about trying to complete the level without dying or trying to complete the level within a certain time frame. But there is a level of fun to it whenever you're not putting all these extra conditions on it. But the moment you put those restrictions on this level, oh man, it is a nightmare, and I'm never going to forget how it felt trying to do this one. Now, I am nearly at the end of the stage, and I'm just kind of hanging out here because right now I have the invincibility mask, which is not a good thing on this level for the most part because there are a bunch of moments when you have to jump on those birds and then use the bounce from jumping on those birds to get to a certain platform. Problem is, if you have the invincibility mask, there's not going to be a bounce. The mask will just go ahead and decimate the bird, and you're going to fall to your death. So even though the invincibility mask can be a very handy tool on certain levels, here it actually puts you at a pretty big disadvantage, so you're better off just waiting for the invincibility to run out. And yeah, at this point I did realize just how close I was getting to the end of the level, and I began to make myself a little bit nervous and also caused myself to become much more cautious and paranoid than I probably should have been. Because I hopped into this little area here, this little opening to get the extra life box and one other box, but then I just hang out in this opening for a while. And I just look at the rotating platforms that I have to find my way back onto. And I almost screwed up that jump a moment ago. Whenever I jumped, I was aiming for the top platform and I could not get onto it. And not only that, it was blocking me from, being able to return back onto the platform I had jumped from. So I was inevitably going to fall. And fortunately for me, I fell onto the other lower platform, so it all worked out. But in all actuality, that was a screw up and I almost died there. But fortunately, I did not. I made it to the end of the level here, and I managed to pick up that red gem. Everything worked out in the end. So now the only thing left for this crazy little level that I just absolutely despise in hindsight, all I have to do now is either get the gold or the platinum relic. And I do want to take a moment to call myself out and point out a mistake I've been making this entire playthrough. I've been calling this level the Slippery Slope, but it's actually titled the Slippery Climb. And just like with every other time trial that I have done up to this point, and I guess also with pretty much every single other level in general that I have done up to this point, I do cut out a substantial amount of the failed attempts to complete the level. Now I showed that failure, but trust me, there are countless additional efforts that went into trying to get this gold or platinum relic. They will definitely make their way onto the montage of failures and deaths, assuming I do get around to doing that. And yeah, this one's definitely a prime candidate for, no matter how many times I show Crash dying in that montage, it's still going to be nowhere near the actual total number of times that occurred, because it would be substantially more. Alright, so we already have 2 different deaths that we have encountered so far in this time trial, and now we are approaching the part of this level I would say is the most detrimental to trying to make a good time, or at least good enough for a gold or platinum relic. And that's going to be the points whenever we have the retracting staircases that we have to climb. And in order to get this climb to go well, we have to wait for basically the moment right before they finally extend out and we can actually land on them and use them. And the moment before they do that, we have to preemptively jump. That way we are landing on those staircases the moment they extend out and are actually usable. That way we should have just enough time to finish climbing them and reaching the next platform that we have to ascend in order to get to the next part of the climb. Problem is, sometimes that preemptive jump does not go according to plan. Sometimes I jump a little bit too soon, the staircase has not extended yet, and I just go ahead and slide all the way off the bottom of it, and well, we have to try this thing all over again. In other cases, I jump a little bit too late, the staircase extends, and I have a slight chance of reaching the top of the stairs before it retracts again, and sometimes it works out, but more often than not, I'll get to the very top step of the stairs, it'll retract, and look, we're sliding again. So, yeah. That is one of the biggest problems with trying to make this climbing portion of the level work out. But that's only one of a few... No, I'm exaggerating by saying a few. It is only one of many things that can go wrong during this climb. And things will go wrong. If you manage to get this in your very first attempt somehow, I mean, congratulations, that is amazing. But more often than not, I imagine the average person is having to do this dozens or more times before it finally works out for them. At least that was the case for me. And while I definitely died at pretty much every single portion of this level trying to get that relic, I would say the climb with the retractable stairs was the part that caused me to fail the most on the slippery slope level. And alright, we are approaching the very end of the level. Just gotta make sure we don't screw anything up here. We survived the birds, survived the scientist, and at 2 minutes and 38 seconds, we got the gold relic, and that is good enough for me. So after the absolute gauntlet that was the slippery climb, getting the gem on that level and the golden relic on that level, yeah, this seemed like the perfect stopping point because I kind of need a break after going over all that. Granted, I am commentating on my gameplay after the gameplay's been done for over a year, but just watching that again and editing out the deaths, oh man, that by itself was kind of exhausting. But yeah, in this episode we got all the way up to level 25 and completed it, the slippery climb. And next up in the very next episode, we will start things off on level 26, which will be Lights Out. And unlike the slippery climb, I actually quite like Lights Out. So we'll be starting off the next episode on a very good foot. But until then, this has been it for Thor's Entertainment. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching it. And if you enjoyed what you saw, hopefully I end up seeing you again in the very next episode. Until then though, take care and I'll see you next time.